Have you ever considered whether the fabled characters in old tales were more than just figs of imagination? Imagine if I told you the great Gilgamesh, one of the most well-known heroes of all time, might have really walked the planet. Archaeologists in Iraq have discovered a tomb perhaps containing the key to this age-old riddle. What then secrets lay under the sands of time just waiting to be discovered? Let's start this exciting trip right here. Polishing the stage. Imagine this. One of the first cities in the world, Uruk is a hive of trade and culture where tall mud brick walls surround the populace. Around 2700 BCE, a dynamic period when gods and people coexisted and the legends of heroes like Gilgamesh permeated the streets. Gilgamesh was not any king. He was said to be 2/3 god and 1/3 human, blessed with great power and beauty. Though praised for his achievements, his attitude reflects a remarkable paradox. His arrogance and autocratic behavior attracts criticism as well. Weary of his repressive rule, the people of Uruk ask the gods for deliverance. To humiliate Gilgamesh, the gods produce Enkidu, a wild man who represents the raw force and basic instincts of nature. Their conflict results in a bond stronger than simple friendship, rather than hostility. Together they set on great exploits, facing not only terrifying animals, but also their own identities and aspirations. More than a story, the Epic of Gilgamesh is a thorough investigation of friendship, loss, and the human condition. This epic explores the universal search for meaning and immortality, as well as human nature. But was Gilgamesh only a fiction, a character created from the fantasy of storytellers? Recent archaeological finds have set off a frenzy of interest, since they imply that maybe he was a real monarch, a giant of his time, whose legacy goes beyond mythological borders. This realization might change the way we view history itself. The Epic of Gilgamesh. Comprising Akkadian on clay tablets, the Epic of Gilgamesh is from the 3rd millennium BCE. Often regarded as the first piece of literature created worldwide, it comes before even Homer's epics. The story turns out as a sequence of exploits, covering themes of friendship, the fight against nature, and the unavoidable death. The narrative starts with Gilgamesh's rule vividly shown, rising great walls around Uruk and fighting wars that confirm his hero reputation. He is a powerful warrior and builder. Still, his conceit sends his subjects to hopelessness. Enkidu is born as the people scream to the gods, begging for assistance. Living among the animals, Enkidu reflects the wildness of nature. His last meeting with Gilgamesh results in a renowned wrestling fight that represents the conflict of the wild against civilization. Representing the harmony between society and environment, they discover common ground and create an unbreakable link, rather than defeating one another. Their exploits together, including the hunt to kill Humbaba, the defender of the cedar forest, showcase their courage and the results of their deeds. The forest represents the wild wildness, one domain the gods have kept under control. Their path is a great act of disobedience against divine will that finally has sad results. Gilgamesh and Enkidu's relationship deepens as the epic moves, exposing great insights about the nature of life, love, and loss. Their friendship becomes a potent prism through which we view the human condition. The Search for Immortality by Gilgamesh. The death of Enkidu marks the turning point in the epic since it destroys Gilgamesh's universe. When Gilgamesh loses his best friend, he finds himself in a severe existential crisis. Driven to discover a means of escape from the certainty of death, he develops fixation with the concept of immortality. Gilgamesh travels in search of Utnapishtim, a man with the key to life never-ending. Emphasizing survival and divine intervention, Utnapishtim's narrative is shockingly similar to Noah's from the Bible. Echoing the ideas of divine wrath and atonement, he tells the story of a huge flood that destroyed mankind and saved just him and his family. Gilgamesh must overcome several challenges on this road, each trying his will and power. He crosses dangerous mountains, encounters magical entities, and discovers that immortality is a gift given to the few, not a right for the many. This insight drives him to face his own humanity and the boundaries of his authority. At last, Utnapishtim advises him that leading a meaningful life full of love and connection is the key to immortality. In a terrible turn of events, a serpent snatches the plant he gave Gilgamesh that restores youth, therefore leaving Gilgamesh with just the knowledge from his trip. This helps the epic to brilliantly show that the search of immortality is finally useless, and that real immortality rests in the legacy we leave behind by our deeds and relationships. This moving message reminds us of the need of connection, love, and the events that define our life over time. Unraveling the legend. Scholars have wrestled with Gilgamesh, the man behind the epic, for millennia. Many arguments have been started by the attempt to differentiate fiction from reality. Not until the 19th century did major discoveries first surface. Discovering parts of the Epic of Gilgamesh, archaeologist Austin Henry Layard dug objects from the ancient city of Nineveh. The tablets had inscriptions covering Gilgamesh's exploits, as well as illuminating the social, political, and cultural dynamics of ancient Mesopotamia. Scholars excitedly translated these books to start conversations on the links among many ancient civilizations. The tales kept on these tablets suggest the universality of subjects, including friendship, death, and the search for meaning. As George Smith, a self-taught Assyrian cuneiform scholar, emerged in the late 19th century, the arguments about Gilgamesh grew more intense. Smith's translations in the 1870s revealed a flood narrative matching the biblical narrative, generating an obsession that enthralled scholars and the general public equally. Driven by his love of old scripts, he returned to Nineveh to find important fragments of the Epic of Gilgamesh and other stories meant to expand our knowledge of ancient mythology. Sadly, Smith's life was cut short at a young age, although his contributions set the path for next studies of the ancient world. The new information about Gilgamesh's tomb. By use of sophisticated surveying methods, a group of archaeologists under Jorg Fassbinder explored the vicinity of Uruk in fast-forward time. Their results led to the discovery of a great tomb that fit descriptions from the Epic of Gilgamesh rather exactly. This amazing finding opened the enticing prospect that the fabled king himself had finally rested. Within the tomb, a wealth of relics and inscriptions suggested the remarkable occupant. One inscription attested to Bilgams, the Sumerian name for Gilgamesh, therefore verifying the link to the fable monarch. With its ornate rooms and complex patterns, the sheer enormity of the tomb suggested it was set aside for someone of great importance. Among the amazing discoveries were stone sculptures showing ferocious lions, which stood for Gilgamesh's bravery and will. Furthermore unearthed were tablets documenting his exploits and meetings with Enkidu, offering understanding of their close relationship. These relics strengthened the conviction that these tales sprung from reality and were not only folklore. The design of the tomb showed the grandeur befitting a king who was not just a king, but also a hero in the perspective of his people. It attested to the immense respect the people of Uruk had for Gilgamesh, a man who, despite his shortcomings, stood for the fight for excellence and the search for meaning. The Revelations of the Tomb. A graphic depiction of the famous scenario in which Gilgamesh battles Humbaba, archaeologists painstakingly dug up a statue made of alabaster, showing a powerful man wrestling a lion. The existence of Enkidu-related relics, including letters documenting their friendship, implied that these narratives reflected the deep links defining human experience rather than only stories. Gilgamesh's particular legacy, as both a man of the earth and a figure of divine origin, is reinforced by the complex design and placement of the tomb, which reflect Sumerian funeral customs. Archaeologists discovered traces of plants that suggested the plant of life from the epic in one chamber, a fascinating prospect that fully rounded out Gilgamesh's tale. This revelation closes the distance between history and myth, and provides a window into the life of a man who might have inspired stories of gods and heroes. Gilgamesh's relationship with the objects discovered in his tomb challenges us to reconsider the limits of our knowledge of ancient stories. A continuous legacy. This revelation has significant ramifications. Should Gilgamesh be a historical person, his narrative not only clarifies the morals and ideals of Mesopotamian civilization, but also inspires us to consider our own human experience. Deeply felt themes of friendship, sorrow, and the search for meaning cut across time and culture. Standing at the junction of mythologies and history reminds us that the past is a tapestry of human experience, rather than merely a sequence of events. The epic reflects our shared trip across life. Not only a narrative, many generations of people have been inspired by the stories of Gilgamesh, which challenge us to face our death and search for significant relationships. Furthermore, the finding of his grave sparks a more general interest about other historical personalities vanished from time. Exist additional narratives buried under the sands just waiting to be discovered? The road of knowledge is never-ending, and every discovery helps us to get closer to comprehending the complexity of our common humanity.